Sometimes it's hard to remember what happened, especially if you weren't there, and also if you're drunk. This is everything you need to know but may have forgotten about drunk history.
Drunk History was co-created by Jeremy Connor and Derek Waters, who was also the de facto host of the show, frequently seen drinking a tequila shot with a narrator or donning a fancy wig for a reenactment. According to the New York Times, the whole thing stemmed from a conversation Waters had in 2007 with actor Jake Johnson. Waters and Johnson were, drunk, and Johnson was passionately trying to explain to Waters how Otis Redding passed away.
It's probably got 2 minutes of content, the story. It took me about 45 minutes to tell it. And I thought, man, I just blew this kid's mind.
How hilarious and awesome it would be, thought Waters, to tape drunk people telling a rambling story about a historical event and then get actors to reenact the drunk person's story. Waters had the idea for months, but didn't do anything about it because he didn't think it would work. Plus, he didn't have any clout. Fortunately, one of his best friends happened to be Juno and Arrested Development star Michael Cera, who kept encouraging him to figure out a way to do it. He also promised to be in the show if Waters ever managed to make it. Clout granted. In its first incarnation, Drunk History was a completely different animal. Waters' first pitch was for a reality show. According to IndieWire, the concept was that Waters would rent a bus and drive around the country, popping into bars and parties in major cities where drunk locals would tell him unfiltered tales of local history. While the show's concept changed into something a bit more manageable, this original concept was retained in the early seasons of the show as a framing device. Waters says he was also offered the chance to do Drunk History as a bunch of sketches that would be edited together into a feature film. While a company throwing money at you to make your movie seems pretty awesome, Waters actually turned it down because he knew the concept of a drunk person describing a historical event acted out by people in period garb is something that would only work in small doses. Further down the line in the production series, the History Channel showed interest in putting Drunk History on the air, but wondered if the word drunk had to be in the title or if the narrators had to be drunk. So it'd just be history? That kind of kills everything special about the show.
Storytelling.
While a brain on booze isn't the most reliable conduit for information, the cast and staff of Drunk History ensured that the show's narration segments, and by extension, the reenactments, came out accurate, albeit in a swervy, tipsy sort of way. In order to come up with good material, the producers had a group of history doctoral students from UCLA compile hundreds of potential Drunk History stories before each season began taping. That list was then pared down, and each story was matched up to the comedians who signed up to narrate, based on their historical interests. Waters told The Wrap in 2018, "Most of the people who do it have some sort of idea of the story prior, or the world that it's going to be discussing. To guarantee that the guest stars appeared to be experts on their topic, they were encouraged to cram like it was a high school history test." Waters explained, "We send them a research packet so that they have 1 or 2 weeks of studying it over and over again." The packets usually consisted of a 3-page summary of the historical figure or event, links to documentaries, and book recommendations for a deeper dive. When taping actually happened, Waters just let the narrators ramble on, stopping them only if they got a date, name, or some other fact wrong.
What year are we in?
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
With such a hot property on his hands, Derek Waters was naturally beset by requests from agents of big-time Hollywood big shots who wanted their chance to cut loose on Drunk History, and he was happy to have them on, provided they were easy to work with. Fortunately, there were certain fail-safes that weeded out a lot of potential human buzzkills. The fact that the reenactments took all day or more was a major turnoff for busy actors, as was the fact that the show operated on such a shoestring production budget that it could only afford to pay $600 for a day of on-screen work. Nevertheless, some stars were still down, like Oscar winner Octavia Spencer, who guest starred as Harriet Tubman. Waters would later single her out as being a delight to work with. In addition to being solicited by celebrities and their agents, on occasion, Drunk History producers would approach stars with offers and roles in mind. One major actor who declined the chance to star in a historical reenactment? Adam Sandler, who didn't want to play Davy Crockett in a segment about the Battle of the Alamo. Waters took on the role himself, telling Entertainment Weekly, "I really wanted to be Davy Crockett, and I'm glad Adam Sandler said no."
You are a gentleman, but with just the right amount of a bastard.
Drunk History was both extremely accurate and deeply entertaining, which would probably make it an effective educational aid in history classes, were it not for all the unbridled drinking and bleeped profanity. Still, its value came from an earnest and honest place. Waters explained, "I wanted to be a teacher. I just never thought I'd be a teacher like this." Apparently, this uncommon teaching path has actually made a positive impact. Waters explained that his show seems to be a valuable teaching tool at the college level, saying, "People have told me that their professors show a clip. The thing that gets me is some people say, I had a test and I didn't know this until I saw Drunk History. I passed. I knew this question that was on my test because of Drunk History." For the actors to get their lip-syncing of the drunk narrator's tales just so, the sets of the historical reenactment segments were outfitted with gigantic speakers that bellowed out the drunk narrations a few lines at a time on a loop. But when the actors nailed it, it was all worth it.
This is about to be, like, I'm not even about to bullshit you. This is about to be some bullshit. Like, this is about to be like a real stealth operation. You motherfuckers have never seen no shit like this before.
The real technical problems came when shooting the drunk portions. Oddly enough, drunk people combined with expensive filmmaking equipment added up to potential disaster. Who knew? Co-creator Jeremy Connor told Complex that problems with audio were almost a given, and that the drunker the comedians got, the less they seemed to care about keeping the expensive microphones safe. Another problem? The narrators sometimes got so hammered that they wound up laying face down on the ground or on a couch, and they would try to tell their stories that way. Unfortunately, microphones can't pick up audio when it's drunkenly mumbled into a couch cushion or throw rug, meaning the production crew always had to be ready to help get things back on track. Derek Waters liked his narrators good and hammered for real. The show was called Drunk History, not sort of tipsy history, after all. This explains why, according to him, every single one of the narrators puked at some point during their taping. Waters even worked up a little drinking routine. He encouraged the comedians to have a drink before the crew arrived to get them warmed up and loose, but not too many. Waters has said he's had to reschedule when he's shown up at a narrator's house to find that they were already 5 or 6 sheets to the wind. Then, to loosen them up further, and to get them comfortable with losing all their inhibitions on national TV, Waters would share a drink with the narrator. The drinking continued throughout the shoot, so the narrators got pretty plowed.
Some celebrateds. What's the word I'm looking for? Some,
Mark?
hold on.
What specific alcohols worked best? Over the span of the show, Waters told Cheddar News he learned that beer makes people talk too much about themselves, wine makes them sleepy, and bourbon, quote, makes you do what I like on the show, which is make you think you're the smartest person. According to Business Insider, a taping of the average narration segment for Drunk History could last around 6 hours. Multiple takes were required, from which the best was selected later on. On Drunk History, this was usually the one where the narrator is the drunkest, but not necessarily the one where the comedian is trying to be funny. Waters said it's because people naturally try to be funny when they're drunk, but even professionals forget how to craft a joke when the world's spinning all around them.
Mark. Mark.
The production crew also took measures to make sure everybody was safe while filming.
Yeah, we have a medic and security on set. It's a poison. You shouldn't drink alcohol.
Drunk History filmed actual drunk people being drunk, but some got far more drunk than the rest. Co-creator Jeremy Connor told Complex in 2005 that 2 narrators stood out. Comedian Duncan Trussell somehow managed to tell the story of Thomas Edison's destruction of rival Nikola Tesla on the floor of his bathroom. The other was Natasha Leggero, who drank a bottle of white wine and followed it with some tequila shots and then tried to film from a bathtub filled with moisturizer. However entertaining that might have been to see, the thread of history was surely lost. The comic ended up calling production the next day after she'd sobered up, unable to remember if they'd finished taping her episode or not. Turned out they hadn't, so they had to reschedule. When Comedy Central suddenly canceled Drunk History in the summer of 2020, production on the show's 7th season had been halted for months due to international shutdowns. Unfortunately, that put an end to co-creator and host Derek Waters' plans to pay tribute to the person from his Baltimore childhood who made him a history buff, and whose teaching style had a strong influence on Drunk History. Waters told Gold Derby, "Why I love history is my high school teacher, Mr. Stang. He would be able to somehow relate the historical figure that we were learning about or the moment in history and then turn it into why the Orioles suck right now." Waters had an episode in the works where drunk narrators discussed their favorite and most personally impactful teachers, and it would have ended with Waters and Mr. Stang, quote, getting drunk and teaching the story of the Whiskey Rebellion with Alexander Hamilton. Unfortunately, it never came to pass.
Drunk History turned true tipsy tales into must-see TV. So why didn't we get to see the episode on Bruce Lee? It turns out that the popular Comedy Central show was abruptly canceled for some pretty crappy reasons. To the delight of fans everywhere, a 2019 Comedy Central press release announced the wildly popular Drunk History series was renewed for a 7th season. 1 year later, that mood was tempered when the show was canceled, despite strong ratings, 17 Emmy nominations, and 1 win. At that time, Season 7 episodes were reportedly in pre-production. Why then was Drunk History axed when the cast and crew were seemingly at the top of their game? And will Season 7 stories ever see the light of day? Drunk History began life on the YouTube channel of series co-creator Derek Waters before moving to the Funny or Die web platform. Comedy Central picked it up in 2013. In all its different versions, celebrities, comedians, and actors gave their take on real historical events to the best of their knowledge, having had a bit too much to drink. After those tipsy tales were recorded, the voiceover was used as a backdrop for other stars as they reenacted and lip-synced the story. All the alcohol-fueled embellishments included. Needless to say, the show took narrative license with history, but the results were hilarious, and the show was generally considered pretty accurate, according to NPR.
Hello. Today we're going to talk about the invention of Coca-Cola, America's favorite soft drink.
Waters' show even earned accolades for its representation of typically disenfranchised views on history. So what went wrong? According to Deadline, Drunk History met its fate in a confluence of worldwide events and a shift in programming priority from the Comedy Central front office.
This is gonna be the best movie ever.
As news spread that Drunk History had ended, Derek Waters was left in the dark as to why, based on further 2020 reporting from Variety. At that time, the slurry historical narration for Season 7 was complete, and early on, Waters said no one at Comedy Central informed him what happened or if the bad news was even real. He told the publication, "No one's called me. I have no idea. I have no verification of it. It sounds a little dramatic, but it's like a funeral without any music. I would love to finish what I started. It would just be nice to end on your own terms, to say goodbye and not just be like, that's it." Offering some consolation, Waters reportedly maintained a first-look deal with Comedy Central and would focus on other projects. As it turns out, Drunk History was not the only film and TV franchise shuttered around that same time. When the global COVID-19 pandemic hit, all film and TV production halted, and Waters' show was no exception. Another contributor to the end of the show was the fact that Comedy Central decided to shift focus toward adult animation and away from live-action production. When the news broke of Drunk History's end, only one Comedy Central live-action series was in production. Awkwafina is Nora from Queens, starring comedian and actress Awkwafina. Meanwhile, another Comedy Central series, Corporate, was in the midst of airing its final season. Another popular live-action series, Tosh.0, also ended in 2020. In 2020, Waters shared his thoughts on the series' end in a tweet, writing, "Beyond disappointed with Comedy Central canceling Drunk History. Sad to see it end, but my God, am I thankful for all it did." Joining Waters was actress Ashley Nicole Black, who narrated a Season 5 episode about classic Star Trek star Nichelle Nichols. In a tweet, Black wrote, "I'm really gonna miss Drunk History, but actually I wouldn't be surprised if another network picks it up."
Yes, I am Martin Luther King, and I'm a Trekkie.
As of this video, that prediction has not yet come to pass. Season 7 episodes of the show remain incomplete and unseen. Among other topics reportedly covered in those lost Drunk History episodes were martial arts action movie star Bruce Lee, baseball's first openly gay player Glenn Burke, and the Harlem Hellfighters, an African-American World War I regiment. Comedian Patton Oswalt was also set to be involved. Though Drunk History remains canceled in the US, international spin-offs were produced, including Drunk History, Black Stories, from Comedy Central International, covering the African diaspora. That show premiered in 2021 and ran for 1 season, according to CNN.
For fans of historical reenactment and drunken hijinks, few shows in the 2010s were more entertaining than Drunk History. As wild as it was, the producers had a handful of rules in place to make sure things didn't go completely off the rails. While the narrators who recited their drunk history tales were encouraged to do exactly as the title of the show says, get drunk, the show's actors had to remain stone cold sober. Theoretically, one could have taken a secret swig from a hidden flask on set, but matching lip movements to the timing of a drunk person requires a high level of sobriety. It's this exact mismatch of sober and drunk and orchestrated and improvised that helped make the whole show work. Not that there weren't some alcohol-related nuances to actors' performances. There was a real behind-the-scenes craft to drunk history, which followed much more of a structured formula than folks might realize. In an evaluation of actors acting drunk in various movies for Fast Company, showrunner Derek Waters revealed what he believes is the secret to the craft, saying, "When someone is pretending to be drunk, the goal should be to pretend to be a drunk person trying to be sober." In other words, the goal was realism, not hamming it up. As for when actors could drink, and Waters' take on the relationship between alcohol and creative ventures in general, he reckoned alcohol should come last. He elaborated, "Alcohol is nice to celebrate when you finish your vision. It should be the ending, not the beginning." While the actors of Drunk History got to have fun in front of the camera and draw viewers to the show, nothing would have worked without the narrators bringing the show's stories to life. Naturally, the narrators had to get plastered, but there were a whole lot of alcohol-related guidelines in place to steer things in the right direction. First off, narrators were encouraged to avoid alcohol that makes them sick. Hangovers were all but guaranteed, as it typically took 5 to 6 hours of footage to condense things into a little 10-minute skit. Sometimes, no matter the quality of the narrator or their telling of a tale, folks got irate or annoyed that they couldn't remember things well. This meant that Waters often got an apologetic email on the second day of filming, as he told Esquire, on top of the hangovers.
You're insane.
Yeah, we should have just sipped that.
Whew.
Ready?
Okay, buddy.
In order to make things smooth and not make narrators feel exploited, Waters drank alongside them. They took breaks, filmed in their own homes, and had medics on standby just in case. But regardless of all the caveats, drunkenness was still the rule of the day. While certain drunk history actors were naturally funnier than others and lent a comedic element to scenes, the show worked best when actors actually acted, just not too much. As showrunner Derek Waters said to Esquire, the sneaky purpose of the show was always to educate as well as entertain. As he put it, if you humanize historical figures, making things relatable, then you have people's attention. And if you can make people laugh, I think you can do a lot of things. I always say the comedy of the show is that they're drunk, but we're trying as hard as we can to make a real history show. The brunt of the comedy in Drunk History naturally stems from the narrator's drunkenness, but in order for this comedy to come out, actors had to tell a largely straight-faced story. They had to keep faithful to the narration and not distract from it. Take Season 3, Episode 4 of Drunk History, featuring Academy Award-winning actor Octavia Spencer as legendary Underground Railroad figure Harriet Tubman. Narrated by comedian Crystal West, this segment talked about a serious topic worthy of serious consideration. Real history, in other words. Spencer added some comedic inflection to her performance, but she still made sure that it was more reminiscent of a biopic like Hidden Figures than something truly unhinged like Ma.
Harriet Tubman was like, damn, I freed 750 slaves. Like, this was dope as hell.
Next up is another rule that might seem like a no-brainer. Tell an actual story. Anybody can rattle off facts about a historical event and sift through handfuls of tedious terms and dates, but that kind of approach often leaves people cold. This is why Drunk History worked. Regardless of the alcohol, it was something closer to fireside storytelling than a lecture. In order to tell a story, Derek Waters had to play a careful game with each narrator. He was very selective about his orators. He knew most of them before he reached out to them, and was familiar with what kind of stories they'd gravitate towards. He'd hone in on people who were comfortable on camera and who were a combination of smart and charismatic. The latter was particularly critical, as sometimes alcohol makes people unlikable. Narrators had to tell a true story with a beginning, middle, and end, and they would be given weeks to prepare on the topic they were assigned. This whole setup worked thanks to Drunk History's secret ingredient, Waters himself, who guided the whole storytelling process. He joked to Vox, "I guess I'm a drunk whisperer in a way, drinking with them and knowing what to say and what not to say." The comedy of Drunk History hinged on the show's stars lip-syncing narrators as closely as possible. If this didn't happen, and a narrator's words didn't look like they were coming from the actor on screen, then the series wouldn't have worked. It's the weird, drunk rhythm of speech that made the actor's delivery of lines funny. And arguably, it's those actors who lip-synced as closely as possible who were most successful in their roles. Take Evan Rachel Wood. She played Mary Shelley, author of the groundbreaking 1818 book Frankenstein. Wood's Season 6, Episode 1 portrayal of Shelley is largely lauded as one of the show's finest performances because her lip syncing is so spot on, even when Rich Fulcher's narration is slurred and unpredictable.
Oh! I have my story! You amazing puppet!
While we don't know how much practice Wood got, it would definitely take the average person some serious hours to land those lip-synced lines.
Drunk History was one of Comedy Central's most buzzworthy shows, so why did the network shout last call for the beloved series? And what happened to the show's creator, Derek Waters? Drunk History spun out of a Funny or Die web series of the same name, where intoxicated celebrities tried to recount real historical events. That narration was then used as other famous actors and comedians acted out the narration. The Comedy Central series received a whopping 17 Emmy nominations during its run, winning one for costume design in 2015. Familiar faces who appeared in the series include Lin-Manuel Miranda, Jack Black, and Will Ferrell, the latter of which also executive produced the show. The program was already in pre-production for its 7th season when it was surprisingly canceled. So what happened? The shutdown in film and TV production caused by the COVID-19 pandemic reportedly played a part, while Comedy Central also unveiled a shift in programming toward adult animation and away from live action. Still, shortly after the surprise cancellation, Waters told Entertainment Tonight that he was shocked, especially since he felt that the Drunk History formula seemed perfectly suited for remote production during the COVID pandemic.
I still don't really understand why they did it.
Waters told Entertainment Tonight that he hoped that he would be able to find a new home for the show, something he reiterated in an interview with the Baltimore Sun. Deadline also reported that Waters maintained a first-look deal with Comedy Central and could possibly transition to new projects, and Waters revealed that he had been spending his time productively, making a Drunk History video for Represent Us, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization seeking to make voting easier, among other initiatives. Waters also mentioned he could return for a Drunk History special, and he told Variety that he was developing a new show he was working on with his production company, Be Nice or Leave Productions, that he was looking to launch after the pandemic had subsided. I'm hoping to get that made when it's a little safer to film. I've learned a lot of lessons from Drunk History, and I'm ready to use them on new projects. Exactly what that project was, however, is unclear. And nearly 3 years after the show's cancellation, little new material from Drunk History creator Derek Waters has seen the light of day. Nor has a new home for Drunk History been announced. That's not to say Waters hasn't been busy though. In 2021, he began playing Phil, a beleaguered art director in Rob McElhenney's Apple Plus comedy series Mythic Quest, and he also teamed up with a new creative partner whose identity may surprise you, musician Ben Folds. In 2021, Waters also appeared on Ben Folds' podcast, Lightning Bugs, Conversations with Ben Folds, where they discussed both Mythic Quest and Drunk History. Waters said that he thought people liked Drunk History in part because it was new and fresh, not just in content, but in how it was made. He encouraged people to follow their own path, saying, "Know that what you will do will be great, even if it has never been done. What people like is something that stands out because it's different, but some people like more of the same. Not me." Is that a hint that Waters may not in fact return to Drunk History, but instead do something different? It's hard to say, but we do know that in 2023, Waters did do something new when he directed a music video for Folds' newest song, Exhausting Lover, which was the lead single off Folds' 2023 full-length album, What Matters Most. In a statement, Waters said that making the video with Folds deepened their bond. "I always have and always will love Ben Folds, but now I have a deeper appreciation for him, knowing we shared similar experiences in a Motel 6 with a Hot Wheels track and dancers dressed as animals." Whether or not Drunk History is itself history remains to be seen, but for now, fans of the show can still stream the old episodes, along with spin-off shows such as Drunk History UK, which debuted in 2015 and ran for 3 seasons.